Yeah, not as much with that as much as the endocrine disruptors and the cancers. However, we do have this other group of chemicals that are making me a little crazy, and that's those isoxazoline derivatives. So I meant to talk about this on Facebook Live, and I haven't done it yet, but the isoxazoline drugs, there's a couple of them that are used on the human market as blood thinners. And they decrease clotting, which is a wonderful thing, you know, if you've had a heart attack and you're at increased risk of clotting. However, there's no antidote for them. And so one of the side effects, it's not common, but one of the side effects, and this was really brought to light by some folks in Canada whose dog died from one of these drugs. They're flea and tick killers. They're not preventatives because they kill them after they have a blood meal on your dog or cat. But their dog died because it bled out into its abdomen, into its chest. And that hadn't been reported. And they did a lot of research, and they came up with this wonderful research showing that the isoxazoline derivatives, that's what those drugs are that stop clotting in people. And so I went and read a lot of the articles, and basically what it said is if in the human medical field, if you're on one of those drugs and you have a bleeding problem, there's no antidote.
Right.
So you just bleed out and you die. And so if you listen to, it's Eliquis and I think was one of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
I forget what the other one was. But, you know, if you listen to those commercials on TV and at the end where it talks about, you know, bleeding, death, blah, 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 that's what they're talking about. And so the same thing can happen in animals. More commonly, however, what we're seeing with these drugs are seizures and neurological problems because the drugs are neurotoxins for bugs. So for insects and arthropods, so for the ticks and the fleas, they're neurotoxins. And so they basically shut down their nervous system and they die. Well, that's a wonderful thing, except that some dogs and cats seem to be very sensitive to it as well.
Now, with these drugs and with the issues of the bleeding and all of the different side effects, are these side effects magnified because they have to reach a certain level in order for them to be effective? And have they researched this to see a correlation?
Well, we don't really know. And we're not seeing specific breeds, so it's not an MDR1 problem for those collies and breeds with the MDR1 sensitivities. We haven't seen a correlation there. We haven't seen specific breeds or sizes of animals. The problems do seem to be worse in the very old and the very young, kind of like, you know, a lot of chemicals will be. However, dogs and cats of all ages have been affected, and I have at least one email a day, generally multiple, from animals that have been poisoned with these drugs. Some have died, some are just having, you know, all the side effects and problems associated with it. And, you know, the problem with these drugs is they're tested on very few animals. You know, one in particular was tested on 216 animals prior to release.
Do they test them on different size animals as well as different breeds, or is it just kind of a generalized, let's grab a group of dogs and start testing?
So a lot of times it starts out with, they use beagle colonies very commonly, so that, you know, it's a population that's very similar, so that they have controls.
But then beagles are really a whole lot different in size from a Chihuahua or a
Saint Bernard,
or what.
So then, you know, if the drug passes the trial at that level, at the company level, then they'll release it, and there are certain veterinary clinics around the world that commonly will be trial centers. So a lot of the cancer centers will trial a lot of the new chemo drugs that are coming out. So, you know,
like they do in the human.
So there are certain clinics, and people are told, you know, your pet may be getting the placebo, your pet may be getting the drug. You know, here's the safety and efficacy studies that we have seen so far. But you're basically signing your pet up to be a guinea pig, which I would never do. But you know, for some people, you know, it seems I don't know. Seems like a good thing to do. I guess if I stand there with a dog with cancer and they said, well, this drug is really promising and we've got nothing else, I might, well, we all know how I feel about chemo right now, but I could understand someone grasping at that straw.
Sure.
And maybe someone who has really struggled with a high flea problem or a high tick problem in the past, maybe they would say, wow, this is a great idea. So I'm sure a lot of these drugs were tested down in the South, where it's a bigger problem. But we are seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of reports in Europe and in the U.S. Of these drugs causing death, liver failure, possibly associated with cancers, which I don't know how they could not be, and certainly neurologic problems, tremors, ataxia, which is walking like a drunk, seizures, and these animals end up being treated with multiple seizure medications, phenobarbital, Keppra. It generally is not something that resolves very easily or very quickly. Some of those drugs stay in the system for extended periods of time. And
well, it's not something that shows up immediately sometimes either, is
right.
it?
And that's the other problem. People, the veterinarians don't make the connection. So if you give a drug that lasts for 3 months and you give it today and 3 weeks from now your dog is lethargic, vomiting, having seizures, a lot of times the veterinarian will say, well, there's no way that can be related,
right,
except that we are seeing a relationship. I got really angry the other day because I made a post about these drugs, and somebody said, yeah, I gave that drug, and within 3 hours I was back at the veterinarian's office with my dog with hemorrhagic diarrhea, vomiting, lethargic, dehydrated, and they said it was coincidence.
Amazing.
And I'm really sorry, and so this is where I love reading records. And so yes, that comment came up the other day because I was asked to look at some records for a little dog that was very anemic from fleas. She was a very, very small dog, an 8-pound dog, and the owner had been battling the flea problem and didn't realize quite how bad it was, so the dog ended up needing a transfusion. And a Capstar was given, and I can understand that they needed that. It stays in the system for about 24 hours, and they needed something for a really quick kill.
Okay.
To get
Right.
Capstar only kills adult fleas. So literally, if we give a Capstar to an animal that's heavily infested, within an hour you'll see dead fleas, and within 8 to 12 hours the cage is just filled with hundreds or thousands of dead fleas. So it's a wonderful quick kill method if you are trying to save a life. I still think there are other ways that it could be done without using the chemical, but I understood why they did what they did. The problem is the dog started having seizures the next day, and one of the isoxazoline drugs was given that day. And there's still a question as to which came first, the seizure or the drug. And if the dog was already seizuring, giving a drug that is labeled as causing seizures and potentially being a problem because it's a neurotoxin, that would be malpractice in my mind. You have a dog that's having seizures and you gave it a seizure-inducing drug. Now, on the other hand, if the dog was given the drug first and then started seizuring, well, now we're just seeing a normal side effect of the drug.
Is this another one of those situations where, like with the vaccines, they should only be administered to healthy animals?
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand what they were thinking, that they were going to, once this dog got through the crisis, that they were going to be sending it back into a flea-infested environment.
Right.
Now, my hope would be that owner would be scared enough at that point to say, oh my gosh, I am going home and I am getting rid of this flea problem. Now, this is from down in the South where, it's hot, it's humid, fleas
Sure.
are a big problem. And once you have a big infestation,
It's hard to get rid of them.
it is hard to get rid of. But I still think that there are other things that could have been done for this poor little dog, and I think that was a dog that was in critical care, and giving that sort of drug to an 8-pound dog in critical care was not the right way to go.
Sure.
So I really strongly request that you guys eliminate or decrease the chemicals that you are putting into your pet's systems, in, on, around. Think about the cleaning agents you use in your house. Your pets are down on the floor sucking it up all the time. They're laying on it. They're grooming themselves. Think about where they live. We are just about out of time, and I'm a little bit sad, actually, that this is our last radio show. But
yeah, we could have gone on for a couple of hours.
We could, but with the fact that we do so many Facebook and YouTube live shows, and we're always educating and we're always available, it's only the end of one of many pieces of our puzzle that we've put together. And frankly, we had to give this up because there's just not enough hours in our day.
Exactly.
So.
But all of the other stuff will continue. We're out on the road almost constantly, providing seminars and all sorts of great information. So find us.
Yep, find us, look us up. We'd love to meet you all in person. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Our show has been #1 since the very first show on the station, and they have hundreds of shows. And so we are thankful and very appreciative to all of you, our wonderful listeners and supporters.
And to Dreamvision 7 for providing this platform where we could be with you each week.
So until we see you on another platform, Facebook, YouTube, seminar, in person, everybody take wonderful care of your pets. Thanks for being willing to learn and for learning from us.
Talk to you soon.
That's all for today. Find more answers to your questions next time on Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets every Monday and Tuesday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time by going to Dreamvision7radio.com. Join holistic veterinarian Dr. Judy to discover healthy options for raising your pets in a more holistic manner. Visit drjudymorgan.com to learn more.
This is Dreamvision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.